Welcome to Studio Ghibli Weekly. I'm Ira Kriesman.
And I'm Drew Kriesman.
When last we left our heroes, Lupin, or Wolf, or Boss as he's mostly called in this film, had just caught his old friend and foil Fujiko, trying to break into a safe here in the castle of Cagliostro, or the Count of Cagliostro. She also has some kind of caper going on here, and she says, hey look, if you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, and not only that, I'll tell you where the princess is hidden. And he's like, oh, I will accept your offer.
All right. Seems reasonable. It's what I came here for, so fair enough.
And I love that she just she knows immediately what he's here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he might be saying he's here for the counterfeit operation, but I don't know. Pretty young lady, damsel in distress, dude wants to be a hero.
Yeah.
So she says she's at the top of the tower. And Lupin says, all right, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. I probably should have figured that out because I've read stories before, but all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the top of the tower.
I love that we have a caper within a caper, though. Love it.
Exactly. Now, to be clear, this is that same tower that we've already seen the Count visit. And to get there, there's this extending bridge that they use. So we talked about how there's this sort of combination of old world and new world. Like it's all old stone facades and clocks and gears and whatnot, but there's also a laser security system, and there's telescoping bridges and glass elevators.
Yeah.
So Lupin doesn't have access to any of that. So he, as we do know, has a grappling hook, though. So what he does is he climbs walls and he scampers over rooftops, and this is one of the most vertigo-inducing scenes I've ever seen in a film.
Right, like deeply unsettling, and it's weird because it's animated, and you would feel like maybe something with a live-action sense of scale or something would produce that vertigo a little more intensely, but there's something about the surrealism of the animation, and we've talked about it before, whether it was, the cars driving up the walls or the way Lupin's body kind of becomes rubbery as he's getting squeezed through gears underwater and stuff. And that just slight stretching of, I'm not even sure what tricks he's implementing to do it here, but I'm with you. This was like almost tough to watch. Like I am so in the gut of the main character here.
Sure. And it's like you said, I'm not sure because I don't know animation, right?
Yeah,
so I don't know what tricks they are.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of some of those scenes of some of the early Spider-Man movies or Batman movies where they're leaping off of roofs and between buildings and swinging this way and that way, and it's like, oh my goodness. But this, I don't know. It's so quiet. It's just the one guy. It really is like I'm nervous for him.
Yeah. Or there's some scenes in Game of Thrones where people are climbing the wall that have similar feelings. But again, I feel like this unique feel for sure.
So Lupin gets up to one of the rooftops. It's a very peaked roof, so he's balancing on the very top ridge of the roof, and he's set to launch his grappling hook, and he attaches it to this little rocket, like a firecracker rocket of sorts.
Yeah.
And he sets it there. Right? Sure, yeah. As one does.
Yeah. And
then he gets out his lighter. And we've talked before about how he's kind of a James Bond gadget spy thief guy, but he doesn't have a gadget here. It's just a regular old lighter.
So he's also MacGyver.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think that's so cool that I climb up the wall, I'm balancing on the rooftop, I've got my cool grappling hook and this little rocket thing, and now I've got a regular old lighter.
Yep.
And it does not light. Which is hysterical. It's like he's got this plan. Okay, I've got a plan. I know what I'm going to do. Lighter.
All the hard parts are over.
Right. And then the rocket sort of tilts and then slips and tumbles down the roof, and he starts to grab the line of the grappling hook to pull it back up, and it doesn't work, and he sort of slips and he pitches over he loses his balance. And so now he's sprinting down this roof. It's like, oh shit, what now? Well, if you're an animated hero, if perhaps you've shown that you can leap over these parking barricades back in Monaco, well, you forget the rocket, forget the grappling hook. I'm just going for it, man. I am going for it. And he sprints down this rooftop, and he catches enough speed that when he jumps, as we've seen him jump before, so it's not like totally out of nowhere.
Right.
But
It's like
when
a
he
world-class
jumps,
hurtler.
yeah,
Perfect
he's able
form
to get
again.
to.
Perfect form.
So he leaps from rooftop to rooftop to rooftop until he eventually runs and grabs onto the wall of the tower where the princess is being held. Now, how does he do this? Is it perhaps suspension of disbelief? I absolutely love this because it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it could also be just belief,
Right.
right? Which is
Right.
another theme that we dive deeper and deeper into throughout the film. But yeah, there is the cartoonish nature of it. We do buy it a little bit more because it's animated. We also buy it a little bit more because it's hilarious and entertaining. But yeah, if you want to dig a little deeper and think a little bit more earnestly about it, this is starting to get at that. If you believe it enough, if you want it enough, and if you build up enough momentum.
Right. Because
you
we
can
want
do
him to
special things.
succeed.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're all
Yeah.
willing him on too. It's like clapping for Tinkerbell.
So now we cut to Clarisse. Clarisse is in her tower. She's the princess locked away in the tower, and she's sitting quietly by the window. And we haven't done this yet for her, so let's take a moment to do a brief character study. So she's a young woman. She's got auburn hair. She's almost always in white or in muted clothing. We know she's lived abroad for many years. She's been studying abroad after her family's house was burned down and her parents were killed. So I think we mentioned an episode or two ago that it would be easy to dismiss Clarisse as only a damsel in distress, which I tend to think of as a pretty negative trope, right? Like it does not do enough to give female characters their agency. And I think it would be easy to do that, except it's worth remembering what she's been through. Like, it's understandable that she feels like there's nothing she can do at this point but sit here and stare out the window. She's lost hope. Her family is dead, almost certainly murdered. She escaped by going abroad, but now she's been pulled back. She's already tried to run away once, right? Like, she snuck out the window and stole a car and was getting away from the bad guys.
Right.
And this Count of Cagliostro, has been killing people for a while, and not just him, but his family, because we're going to find out there's a corpse dungeon in this castle, and she's got to know that, right? She knows that he's got this darkness to him, and she's done what she can, and she has failed. So in order to do these podcasts, I watch the movie, I play the game, I make my notes. I also look at other people's notes. And one of the things I have seen is that some people don't like her character because they feel like she doesn't do anything. And I feel like that is not giving her enough credit for some of the stuff that is off screen.
Sure. Right. Yeah. I find American audiences in particular can be difficult with this. There's a person I talk to about video games and anime a lot who's Japanese, and we've had some conversations recently about this, and I'm not going to spoil it, but with regards particularly to Platefall and Final Fantasy VII Remake, and whether or not American audiences have more of a need to have a direct connection to seeing exactly, like, do I need to know the person who dies to feel something bad for them? Do I need to see the thing happen to feel anything about it? And I can only speak, to our conversations, and this is certainly not a, sociological study, and we don't have data on this or whatever, but it does seem to me that a lot of American audiences, for whatever reason, feel like if you don't show me the thing exactly, if I don't have a personal, exact, direct attachment to it, then it doesn't count. So anything that's kind of off screen, or I feel like this is also applied a lot of times to the Luna Freya character in Final Fantasy 15 that we'll eventually get to. People have similar critiques of her. And it's not that there's nothing to it. I do think that there's some obligation to the writer or the artist or the designer to show us some agency in all of their characters, right? And so I'm with all of that, but I do think that there's just a more tradition of some subtler things, and some, it's okay to just understand, like you said, what she has been through and recognize it through that lens, rather than trying to turn it into something that maybe it's not.
Right. And it's not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we're going to find out, or we're going to see here in a while, that one, she helps figure out the riddle, and two, she saves Lupin at least as many times as he saves her. And once she did it as a very small child.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like we should, you and I at least, should carry the banner of Clarisse of Cagliostro and recognize her for the hero she is, even though she does it in a much less spectacular way than Lupin does.
And I would also say that, this is something we've talked about a lot and I've struggled with over the years in terms of, I remember being taught at a very young age that you see yourself in the characters and the stories, and people are more likely to, identify with characters who look like them. And I've always felt like I identified with characters who are like me, not who look like me, but who are like me. And I cannot claim, in fact, I'm absolutely certain that I am much more like Clarisse than I am Lupin. I would be very passive in this situation. And I'm not the climbing walls, jumping on top of rooftops guy. Like that's, and so, I think there's some recognition there too, that there's a very believable portrayal of a human being that most of us are probably a little bit closer to being in all reality.
Yeah, most of us aren't the action hero. Most of us are I've tried to escape 3 or 4 times. I am exhausted now.
Yeah, right.
So suddenly, a breeze ruffles her hair. And that's strange because none of these windows are open, because none of these windows can open, because the Count knows you can't give her a chance to escape again.
Right.
So she looks around surprised, and there's a hatch in the ceiling. And Lupin is there, and he's lowered himself in. So he's standing in the shadows there, and Clarisse is like, what is going on? And he says, I am a thief, and with your permission, I have come to help. And he comes into the light so she can see him, and he's got her ring. Remember, she accidentally, I'm using air quotes here, accidentally gave it to him when she took her gloves off. So he gives the ring back, and Clarisse says, you got to get out of here while you're still alive. And Lupin, this is like the big important turning point of the movie. At least it is for me. He says, Princess, I have already accomplished the impossible by getting into this tower. And, as you just suggested, Drew, he says, you've got to have faith. You got to believe. I am like a fairy tale hero. And Clarisse is like, are you though?
Plus, a lot of those guys got lots of problems. Like, there's no way Robin Hood smelled super good, hanging out in the woods with all of his buddies. You know what I mean? Like, she's like, I don't know, man. Like, Hercules and Sigurd were like demigods with all kinds of family issues.
Honestly.
King Arthur had just, are you sure you want to be one of these guys?
Yeah, and am I sure I want to get involved with one of these guys?
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm locked in a tower, but...
Like, Maid Marian did not have the best life, you know?
Exactly.
This is brutal, man.
But she also doesn't know that he just sprinted across these rooftops and made these impossible leaps just to get to her.
That's when you really wish you could have had a highlight machine. You could like, Princess, let me go back to the tape. If you look up here. She was unconscious when he saved her the first time, too, from the car that went over the cliff. Right. She hasn't seen him do any of his amazing things.
Right.
Isn't that always the way? You're never at your best when they're looking.
So he says, well, what he does is he asks her to have hope. Because, look, I get it. This is a hopeless situation, but I need you to believe in the thief's powers. And then he does this adorable thing. Like you just said, let's go to the tape, right? But what he does instead is he does a little magic trick for her. He does a little flourish, and there's a bouquet, and then there's all these little flags. He does a little line from the little bouquet, and it's these little flags draping, and it just makes her smile.
Yeah.
For all that, he could have said, "Come with me, princess," and tossed her over his shoulder or some nonsense. Instead, what he does is he does a little trick, and he gets her to smile, and they laugh together. And if you can just make a person in a hopeless situation feel a little bit better for just a moment, isn't that one of the nicest damn things you can do for somebody ever?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really beautiful moment, and it's interestingly layered too, because it's, sleight of hand, which can have a negative connotation in certain aspects. And, the line between a lie and an illusion and magic tricks, right? And people feel all kinds of ways about that. But none of that is, that's all subtextual. That's all under the surface. To them, what's important, and to us, what's important is the emotional connection. It's the feeling. It's why those things still exist. It's why people go to magic shows or watch professional wrestling or get into fantasy or science fiction, things that are not real, that we know going in are not real, but we want to believe for a minute, for a moment, just be there and believe in it. And so the smallest version of that, he doesn't create a fantasy world in 10 fictional languages in this moment for her. He doesn't go full Tolkien. He just does a little sleight of hand, little magic trick, little illusion, which all builds into that hope, belief, faith, imagination. If you can see yourself not in this terrible situation, then you can make that happen. If you can't see it, if you can't believe it, never going to happen. And so as much as some of this, believe in your stuff might feel magical mumbo jumbo, the very real, the absolute real world part of this is if you don't believe that you can escape from prison, you're not gonna. If you don't believe you can become the owner of a business, or that you could ever get married, or that you could ever make money, or you could ever design a video game or become a professional athlete, if you just don't believe it, then you won't.
We ask a lot of questions, usually thematic related questions when we do these podcasts. I do want to ask a motivational question, though, and maybe we don't have an answer right now. Maybe we won't have an answer by the end, but I do want to ask one of these questions that we can think about going forward. And I wonder, why do you think he's doing this? Because initially it feels like he's doing it for the money, right? The counterfeiting operation. But you don't need to rescue the princess to do that. And she doesn't have any money, right? The Count's got the money. And does he want her? Well, I don't think he sees her as a prize, not really. Why would you ask her to have faith in you and do a little magic trick if what you wanted was the woman as a prize? I do think maybe he wants to be a bit of a hero. Mm-hmm. Like he likes having adventures. Right. He wants to be the knight in shining armor.
Yep.
I also wonder if, and we haven't gotten to this yet, but I also wonder if he maybe wants to pay her back a bit for saving him all those years ago.
Right. I think that's...
And I'm not...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the answer is.
Right.
And maybe that's part of the point, but I do want to give that some thought going forward.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of those things, right, too. But he's also an evolving character and a growing one in front of our very eyes. And how much is he truly the gentleman thief trope through and through, and how much is he maybe just a romantic at heart who maybe would just fall in love with someone on sight almost a little bit and be like, maybe that would be better than, all the getting chased by the cops and jumping over cars and stuff.
So after this nice little moment between Lupin and Clarisse, the Count of Cagliostro and his band of ninjas arrive. And they do that weird sideways movement thing that they do, and they encircle him, and they encircle her, and they encircle the room, and it's weird and creepy.
The ninjas are so weird and creepy and kind of a little bit funny. And like you said, he rocks around with a band of ninjas.
Yeah, because he just does.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, thank you, thief, for bringing my ring back." And Lupin says, "It's not your ring because she's not your wife yet, you creep." And he says, "Don't let these guys scare you, Clarisse. I got him right where I want him."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure you do, buddy. Anytime. You okay.
Whatever you say there, Lupin.
Yeah.
And the Count says, "Ha, the game is finished." And he does, I don't know what he does, but a trap door drops or opens up, and Lupin drops through it.
Into the Rancor pit.
Right. But he's like he's got like his arms crossed and he does not seem bothered. Like did he know there was a trapdoor there?
It's like, maybe. Excellent. The part of my plan where he drops me through the trap door. Fantastic.
Exactly what I wanted.
I was never going to get down here otherwise.
And Clarisse has an excellent moment here where she says, I will not marry a murderer.
Talk about that agency you were mentioning earlier.
That's right. And the Count says, already a seductress. Must be in the blood. And I wonder, like, were other women of the Cagliostro line seductresses? Or is he projecting, maybe he sees her having a conversation with any other man as being sexual in some way?
Yeah, right.
You're allowed to just talk to people without it being a thing. Like, it doesn't have to be, an insult to you, Count.
Yeah, no, he got big incel energy coming off of this guy right now.
So he says, your branch of the family walks in light, mine in darkness. 500 years our family's history has brought us to this point. We will unite and fulfill our destiny. We shall reap the rewards promised by the legend. We hold the keys. Give me that ring. Do not force me to be violent. Now, a couple things here.
Couple things.
His branch of the family
notes.
And her branch of the family would suggest that they are in the same family. Now, it's been 500 years, so maybe they're far enough apart that it's not quite incest, but still, yeah.
Yeah, that's gross. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On a more positive note, bringing together the light and the dark, we talk about this a lot in Final Fantasy, that it's not necessarily that the light warriors are trying to extinguish the dark, but rather find a balance. Right. And so there's
all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. If we can bring these rings together, if we can reunite the families, okay. Reap the rewards promised by legend. Perhaps more money. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Rewards are always good. Legends are fun.
Right. Yes. And then he says, don't force me to be violent, which is fucking gross, dude.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to point out that ever since we introduced Sid in Final Fantasy VII, in the Final Fantasy podcast, I've been dropping F-bombs a lot more.
I noticed that too.
So I blame Sid Highwind for, I'll try to rein it in for Studio Ghibli Weekly.
I'm going to say, these movies are for the children, sir. Well, kind of. This is
kind of.
So, yeah, some of this stuff gets pretty intense here, that's for sure. There's also, and maybe just because we just recorded it, but shades of, I'm not the one hurting you. 'Tis not I that it's your faith in your birth that wrong you, not I. There's a little bit of that going on here too, right?
Uh-huh.
Don't blame me for punching you in the stomach. Blame God. Like, wait, what? I don't know, man. Your fist really does appear attached to your arm and your head and all that stuff. So super creepy. Don't force me to be violent is
You got to take responsibility for your actions. Villains,
guy,
more so, perhaps even.
Yeah.
Especially rich villains, like.
Yeah, come on, man. You got plenty of other agency options to choose from here.
Yeah, and it's not like he's hurting, right? Like he could leave the legend and all the riches alone. He's already got this counterfeit operation going where he like controls the finances of the world. He could let all of this go and be just fine. But because he is even more greedy, because he's the first trillionaire in the world or whatever, he's got to push it and make even more money and violate even more human rights. Creep. So he makes that threat. And then we hear Lupin's voice. But hey, wasn't he just dropped into a trapdoor into the corpse dungeon? And it seems to be coming over a radio. And he says, hey, Cagliostro, is that any way to treat a lady, you creep? And it turns out that the ring that he gave to Clarisse, which is the same ring he was working on that nobody mentioned back in the hotel several scenes ago, is actually a fake. And it's got a radio in it. And I absolutely love that they never say, like Lupin doesn't say to Jigen, oh, hey, I'm making this fake ring to give to the princess, and here's my plan. They just do it.
Yeah.
And so if you missed it, it could be like, wait, when it's a fake ring, when did he do that? But if you're paying attention or you're watching it the second or third time, absolutely.
It's right
brilliant.
There. Yeah. Great stuff.
And the Count grabs Clarisse's hand and he says, give me the ring, you wretched female.
This guy's got issues, man.
And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with the word female in and of itself. But let's be clear.
There are contexts where it is the absolute wrong word to use.
It really is. Like it's an adjective, right? It's a descriptor, the female of the species. for example, right? But if you refer to a person as an adjective, that can be kind of taking away some of the humanity, right? Taking away some of, this is a person you're talking about, not a descriptor. So just let's put that out there.
Yeah.
And this particular dubbing that we're talking about was done long before this became a point of contention on the internet. And then the ring explodes into confetti, which is beautiful. I love it.
He's still trying to make her smile.
Right, yes. And stick his finger in the eye of the Count.
2 birds, 1 stone.
So the Count says to Jodo, head butler / ninja, recover his body and get the ring. And they leave. And there's another quiet moment here where Clarisse picks up the flower from the magic trick. And I think that she does have just a little bit of hope. So now we cut back to Lupin. This is the corpse dungeon. It's these sewers underneath the castle of Cagliostro. There's all sorts of skeletons and dead people down here. And remember that Zenigata, the Interpol agent who's always after Lupin, also got tossed down a trapdoor, and he finds him here. Lupin and Zenigata find each other here.
Oh, same dungeon.
And Zenigata, yes.
First time?
You're in the dungeon? I'm in the dungeon. Excellent.
Yeah.
So the first thing Zenigata does is try to arrest Lupin.
Which is hilarious. Objectively hilarious. And, not beyond what some cops out there just like,
right.
It's like, sense of justice I can appreciate here. At the same time, what are you talking about?
Right. Like, where are you going to take me? You going to take me to a dungeon? Is that what you're going to do? Huh? Also, and then Zenigata's like, now show me how to get out of here.
Yeah.
Because I am also lost. Oh. And then Lupin says, it's kind of like we're both under arrest.
You arrest me, I arrest you, buddy. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. Maybe you're in jail. Did you ever think of that, Mr. Interpol man?
Look at us, 2 peas in a pod.
Honestly.
He's the best. He's just so shrugging him off, too. It's wonderful.
So eventually Zenigata realizes, yeah, fair point. And they sort of settle down and they share a cigarette. Lots of smoking in this film. I think we've mentioned that before. And Lupin explains that, yeah, Jigen and I are here, and Fujiko's here too, actually, and we make a hell of a team. And isn't it interesting how, the 5 main characters of the Lupin saga always tend to end up in the same area?
It's like, huh.
That's cool, right?
Yeah. Turns out we always end up getting the Avengers together. This is weird, yeah.
So eventually the sun comes up and the clock chimes 4, and these, the ninjas, the Cagliostro ninjas arrive, but they're dressed in dark green, so I have to assume they're like the frog suit versions of the Cagliostro ninjas.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have multiple ninja suits for multiple terrain.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So they arrive and they attack Lupin and Zenigata, but it's just their clothes around the bones of some old dead prisoners. And Lupin and Zenigata beat them up. Pow, pow, pow. But one of them gets away. And so Lupin jumps in the water after him and follows him. And there's this another big swimming scene where I feel like I've got to hold my breath.
Yeah.
And at one point, he's following this assassin, and his shorts are because he's only in his underwear because he took his clothes off to put it on the corpse.
Right.
So he's only in his shorts, and his shorts come off, and he has to go back and grab them real quick, which I thought was fun. It's a small moment. Yeah. I think it's hysterical.
Because, naked boy.
So he follows the assassin, so he knows the way out, and then he grabs him and pulls him back. And so Lupin and Zenigata are able to dress in the gear and swim up to the entrance. And Jodo is here, the head butler / ninja. So they're able to get the drop on him, and they pull him into the water and lock him. They close the entrance and lock it. So now Jodo is stuck in the corpse dungeon. So it turns out, as they're making their way out here now, Zenigata and Lupin, that they're in the crypt. And the crypt is also where you put your counterfeiting operation if you are an Illuminati counterfeiting person.
Yeah, duh.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So they found the counterfeiting presses. Zenigata is furious because, look at all these different kinds of currency. There's yen, there's dollars, there's libra. I don't think euros existed yet.
Sure, but yeah.
But Zenigata realizes, the world is at Cagliostro's mercy because these are fantastic counterfeits. Obviously, he has been secretly controlling the world's economy for centuries.
Yeah, man. It's got coins from Wakanda in here. This dude, it's got everything. This guy is running deep.
And Zenigata's like, well, we're going to arrest him. And Lupin's like, actually, counterfeiting isn't illegal in Cagliostro. And Zenigata goes, all right, we'll do it your way, Lupin, but we're still enemies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, bro.
Whatever you say, buddy.
That's...
So we changed scenes. It's now Fujiko. Fujiko, remember, has been posing as the princess's attendant this whole time. She crosses the bridge. She goes into the tower. And the first thing she says, excuse me, princess, I've come to say goodbye and apologize. And she's like stripping her red dress off, and she's got camo fatigues on underneath. And Clarisse is like, what the hell is going on? I was talking to a thief last night. I got threatened by my fiance, and now my attendant is here, and she's a commando. And Fujiko explains, I was posing as your maid in order to have the run of the castle. But whenever Lupin shows up, things have a way of getting out of hand, so I'm out of here before this place blows up. And while she's talking, she's putting together a hang glider, which is just so cool.
Yeah, you know how you do, like, where you're like doing a little bit of exposition, you're like trying to have a personal moment with someone, you're building a hang glider so that you can get the F out of this place.
That old trope.
Yeah. It's wonderful. I love her so much. She's great.
And I really like how she took the time to come back and talk to Clarisse, because she could have just taken off. She didn't have to do this.
Sure.
But she chose to at least say, I'm sorry, goodbye.
Yeah.
Now, Clarisse she's got Lupin stuck in her head, right? Because obviously.
I mean, so do I.
She says, I was afraid Wolf was dead. And Fujiko says, no such luck.
No.
And then she says, look, let me give you a piece of advice. Do not fall in love with him. He's a rat. I was in love with him once, years ago.
Oh.
So there's that, right? Because we talked about them being foils of each other, Fujiko and Lupin, right? And they are, because they're both thieves and they sort of compete with each other, but then sometimes they work together. And he's much more, certainly in this movie, he's much more flamboyant in his escapades, and she's much more subtle. And so I like that they bounce off of each other like that. But at the same time, she recognizes there's something romantic about this dude.
Yeah.
There's something that draws one to him, and that she just acknowledges it. I was in love with him once, but that was years ago. I strongly recommend, princess, don't do it. So then Smoke.
Nobody ever
drifts.
listens to that warning, by the way.
No,
ever.
no,
No one
not.
in the history of fiction has ever heeded that warning.
So now Smoke drifts into the room, and we sort of pan out, and it's pouring throughout the castle. And Goemon, the Ronin who's been standing with Jigen back in the spy nest, notices, and he says, hey, there's the signal. Now we cut back to Lupin and Zenigata, and they've set the counterfeiting presses on fire and all the stacked up money and such. And so that's why there's smoke billowing throughout the castle. And Zenigata says, hey, don't we need this as evidence? We cut to the cool adventure music, and the two are trying to escape as the Count's men rush down into the printing press room to try to put out the fire. And then Clarisse and Fujiko, still in the tower, see Lupin and Zenigata running up the stairs around the outside of this other tower trying to escape. And Lupin is waving at Clarisse. And Fujiko realizes that they're going up the tower where the landing pad for the gyrocopter is. And she's like, oh shit, Lupin's coming to rescue you with the gyrocopter. We got to do something.
You know, how one does, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so
he
great.
did promise, right?
There he is.
Lupin gets up in the gyrocopter, and Zenigata's fighting off the guards, and he gets the thing going, and Zenigata's like got to grab onto one of the landing gear, and they take off. Yeah. And Clarisse is like, okay, if they're coming to rescue me, I got to get ready. So she picks up a chair and tries to break the window, and it just shatters. Yeah. So again, Clarisse, having some agency, right? Like taking some charge of her own rescue. And Fujiko's like, oh, that didn't work. Here, let's try this. And she tosses a grenade at the window.
Yeah. Some of that subtlety you were talking about earlier.
You're right, yeah. Much, much less flamboyant than Wolf.
Things have escalated. That's what she was talking about. It's like it's kind of like one of those things. It's not just that she knows that whenever Lupin is around, things are going to get much more dangerous and out of control. She knows that she is going to get much more dangerous and out of control. It's like, he turns me into this person I'm not trying to be right now.
I'm not in love with him, and I don't typically throw grenades at windows, but look.
But Desperate times. Here we go. Stand back, princess.
So it turns out the grenade doesn't work either. But Lupin, remember, got in through the roof. So he leaps from the gyrocopter onto the roof and opens up the roof access. Fujiko, of course, has got some rope. So she tosses the rope up there, and they're going to escape when the Count comes in, because he uses the bridge.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Jerk.
So she's like, all right, princess, up the rope. And she gets out her machine gun, and she's tossing grenades, and she opens fire. And this is like, we talked before about how like those movies that slowly ramp up, like adaptation, where things get slowly and slowly, bit by bit, crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
Right? Or Kick-Ass, where it starts with just like dudes punching each other in a parking lot. Yeah. And by the end, there's grenade launchers and jetpacks. And like, this is where we get there.
Right.
And it's just going to get crazier.
Right.
Lupin jumps down to the roof, and Zenigata's like, I don't know how to fly this thing. And in all the chaos, quite suddenly, Lupin is shot. He is shot through the back, out the front. It like shreds his tie, and he collapses to the rooftop.
Yeah, that was abrupt.
Yeah, so, and then, roll credits because the movie's over, because the hero's dead?
Yep, done. When I saw this on rewatch, and I cannot remember the timeline of exactly when I watched this for the first time and when I watched Final Fantasy VII Advent Children for the first time, but they were close to each other, but I didn't remember making the connection before. When I rewatched it this time, there's a moment in that, and I guess I don't want to give it away because it is kind of spoilery for the end of Advent Children, but where a character, I will say, is shot in the back in very, very much a similar way, and I have to think that that moment may have been a tribute to this moment here in Cagliostro. Like, it's very similarly done and shown and abrupt, where like there's a lot happening. It's almost comically, you're basically laughing at how absurd but also amazing it's getting, and Fujiko's doing like this, like all of a sudden she's Rambo, like,
right, yeah.
but it's amazing and hilarious, and then boom, like you're kind of pulled back into this sobering moment, right?
So he falls to the rooftop and he starts to tumble down the roof, because remember, these are very steep roofs. But Clarisse, she runs over and grabs him and saves him. Now Clarisse is saving Lupin, right? She grabs him so he doesn't fall off the rooftop, and then she covers him with her body. And even though bullets are still flying, they refuse to shoot her. So now we get a standoff of words, right? The Count says, Clarisse, if you marry me, I'll let Lupin live. Take the ring from him, bring it to me, and I will let him go. And Lupin, who is not dead, says, don't do it, princess. But of course, Clarisse is absolutely willing to trade herself for Lupin.
Yeah.
Look what he just did for her, right?
Of course. Right.
Yeah.
Again, this is one of those things that villains like to try to pull off, to use the love of our heroes against each other, or at least the infatuation or whatever. Whatever. The thing, like you said, there's obvious reason for it. They've been saving each other throughout the movie, and the villain tries to turn it on him. And again, the hero never takes that gambit. They never accept that payoff. And the person always tells them, no, don't do it. They've got the gun to my head. Just do what you need to do. And then it's like, no, we're going to find a way out of this together, because that's what heroes do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth noting that, typically I'm going to be down on noble classes and royalty and whatnot. But if there are good royal people, then the whole point is you're supposed to take care of other people. Like, that's the charge you are given, right?
Right.
So, of course, if she's going to be a good royal, a good princess, Lupin's not a citizen of Cagliostro, but he's her knight, so of course she's going to try to protect him when he needs it.
Right.
All right, so Clarisse decides, she's going to trade herself for Lupin, and he's like, well, I don't even have the ring, you don't know where it is. And from the other side of the roof, Fujiko's like, check under the lapel of his collar, that's where he always keeps stuff. And he's like, god damn it, Fujiko.
She's awesome.
So Fujiko's right. Clarisse grabs the ring. She's going to go take it to the Count, and then the Count says to his little minion there, he says, as soon as she moves away, shoot him. So it's about to happen. And then suddenly, Zenigata crashes the gyrocopter into the tower. Fujiko sprints across the rooftop, grabs Lupin, and jumps into the autogyro with him, and the three of them take off. And Clarisse is again in the hands of the Count. And he's got both rings now, and he's got her, and fine, those rascally thieves have gotten away, but whatever. And so we follow Zenigata and Lupin and Fujiko. And Fujiko looks at Zenigata, and she looks at Lupin, and she goes, well, good luck. And she jumps off the gyrocopter, and her hang glider unfurls, and she swoops off into the distance.
Beautiful.
So Zenigata still doesn't really know how the gyrocopter works, and it's going down anyway because it just crashed into this tower. So Lupin's like, all right, if I land with him, he's probably going to arrest me. So he sees in the distance the little yellow Fiat, which is still running, and Goemon and Jigen are in the car, and Goemon gets up on the roof of the car, and Lupin's like, all right, I'm going to jump into the sunroof of the car, which is really dumb, but I love it.
Do not try this at home.
So he jumps out of the gyrocopter, having been shot through the back and beat up 10 ways to Sunday.
Sure.
And he's sort of like, he's on a trajectory for it, but he's kind of on fire. And Goemon, being a samurai, uses his awesome sword skills to basically cut all the burning clothes off of him. And then Lupin collapses into the car.
Sure. Yes. I mean,
absolutely. Why not?
Of all of the things that we've seen, that might be the most cartoon physics. But again, they've been building to it. So
right. It slowly gets crazier.
Okay. I guess they can do that.
Sure. And then Zenigata, who did not have the presence of mind to jump out of the gyrocopter, crashes into a tree and gets stuck there. And they leave him because even though we were allies for the moment, right? Like Zenigata said it himself, we're still enemies. So
I'm not trying to get arrested. Right now. Got stuff to do. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who has reached out to us. Feel free to let us know what we missed, got wrong, or should have mentioned by following us on Twitter at FFWeeklyPod or sending an email to FinalFantasyWeekly@gmail.com. Though the absolute best way to keep up with us and talk to us at any time you like is to become a Patreon at patreon.com/FFweekly or patreon.com/DC Productions. There you can get access to all the Final Fantasy podcasts, the Studio Ghibli, and at DC Productions you get MCU, DCEU, Star Wars, video games, professional wrestling, all kinds of fun stuff. And actually with either, you get to become a member of our Discord channel. It's a really fun, non-toxic community talking about anything and everything under the sun, building each other up, treating each other right. Absolutely love that community. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, swing by patreon.com/DC Productions.